From the very beginning of the Christian community, there was the practical matter of how to pay the bills and how to support all the different ministries that these many churches were engaged in, especially supporting the needy in their communities, taking care of the widows, those who were sick, those who were homebound, those who were hungry. And St. Paul, through all his letters, articulates a vision for this kind of beautiful community of reciprocality, of we receiving the blessings from God through all our efforts of work, toil, labor, and then we sharing from a portion of our abundance with others. And by that way, all the needs in the community were amazingly met. That as you were led to give, as you did so not under compulsion, not for any other reason or for any other person, you gave from your heart, and you did so joyfully, easily, as a way of saying thank you to God, thank you to the community. And that supported the church, that supported the community. Every other spiritual community around the world, non-religious, non-Christian communities, all do something similar. They depend on one another as a community to support the ministries and the outreach. We do that as a Telluride community. People contribute to all sorts of different things to help this place be better. The food bank on this corner started in that garage. When I moved in, I said, why are all these shelves in this garage? This is crazy. Pat and Deb must have had a lot of stuff. It had nothing to do with them. Turns out that's where the food bank started. And so those shelves were there for all the food that people would bring. What a blessing, what an honor to have this church community be the birthplace, the inspiration for a ministry to our wider region of taking care of those people who are in food scarcity needs situations. Everyone, all of us, are totally interdependent. We may say, I made it on my own. I'm a self-made person. That's fine, you can believe that. But did you create the oxygen you were breathing every day of your life? Did you make sure that the sunlight was pouring upon this earth to create photosynthesis, to create energy, to create life? If the sun goes out, and I wish it would, 9 minutes later, planet Earth starts to freeze. We die. We cannot live the way we live without the sun. And every time you look at the sun, you can say, that's the symbol of Jesus Christ. That's the symbol of God's love for humankind, that we are totally dependent on something bigger than ourselves for everything. For everything. And it's so easy to miss that when we have so much digits or so much this or that. It's so easy to forget that all that energy that is coming from all the production on this planet is coming from the energy of that sun. Every source of electricity on this planet is stored sunlight. Everything is stored sunlight. Why do I say that? Things receive the sunlight and they grow green, they die, they fall onto the earth, they disintegrate. That energy gets turned into electricity or oil or whatever, but it originally started out as energy from the sun. Coal is stored sunlight in the form of coal. Oil is stored sunlight in the form of oil liquids. Everything comes from the sun. It's a beautiful illustration of what God is to this earth. What the sun is to this planet, God is to the universe. And it's a big idea. It's wonderful to think about. Everything comes from beyond us. There's a beautiful poem by a poet by the name of Longfellow. And it's called The Arrow and the Song. He writes, I shot an arrow into the air. It fell to the earth, I knew not where. I breathed the song into the air. It fell on earth, I knew not where. Long, long afterward, in an oak, I found the arrow, still unbroke, and the song, from beginning to end, I found again in the heart of a friend. It's a beautiful image. What we throw out there to the world, what we cast out, what we sow out into the world, it might disappear to our eyes, might disappear to our senses, but it will come back to us in some way down the road, in a way you may least expect it. You may write the check and forget about it. You may give your time to an agency or a volunteer community service and forget about it. You may touch someone with your talents, your unique gifts, and because it's what you do, you forget about it. But days, months, years go by, and someone comes up to you and says, you know, when you said that to me, you helped me. When you did that for me, it was so wonderful. When you contributed in that way, it changed my life. Thank you. You never know where it will go. It's a beautiful little phrase. So give it anyway. You never know where it will go, so give it anyway. Certainty does not have to be a part of the equation of giving. We don't have to be certain that someone's going to use it the right way or get it or even deserves it. Our job as the givers isn't to dot every I and cross every T to make sure that they're worthy of receiving the gift or that agency is worthy. Our job is to focus on what's my heart feeling led to do here, to give my time, my talent, my treasure. It's a wonderful thing to know that we don't know where it will go and how it will bless other people and how it will come back to us. The fruit that we sow, the seeds that we sow will come back to us in spiritual fruit in different and unique, wonderful ways. So the focus today is on the nuance of growing in gratitude by way of giving. So here's the assumption, that just like when the leaves clog up your gutters, or when the leaves clog up the drains on the streets, it backs up the water and it can't flow. And so people have to come around and drag that junk out so that the water can flow and go to the appropriate place. In our lives of gratitude and giving, as it relates to giving our time, our talent, and our treasure, oftentimes the reason we're not experiencing gratitude ourselves, the reason we're not in a thankful place, is because we're blocked up and constricted because we haven't said thank you ourselves. Constriction and blockages when it comes to financial flow, more than anything, but also in terms of the flow of just using your gifts in the world, whatever they might be, oftentimes get constricted more than anything else because we haven't been free with our giving. And you can test this principle. It's a spiritual law that runs on the universe, that you can't outgive God, that the more you give your time, treasure, and talents, the more flow will happen, and it will only come back to you with more joy and gratitude for what you are doing and a part of and receiving. So if you wish more joy in your life, if you wish more gratitude in your life, explore an area where you might be more willing to give of your life, to give of yourself, and to break free from the constriction or the blockage that might holding you back. What are the common blockages and constrictions in people's lives? Spiritually speaking, when it relates to giving, when it relates to gratitude. Well, the biggest one that I'm aware of in my life, and I've seen it in other people's lives, that blocks gratitude, that blocks the gift of giving, is fear. And the other side of the coin of fear is oftentimes greed. Greed fuels fear, and fear fuels greed. They're twins, really, twin energies that run on our systems. So if you're in a place of fear, which leads to scarcity, or if you're in a place of fear that leads to control, you can control your fear by managing it all, holding it all tightly. Fear, greed, control, all these things go together. That's leading to constriction. And so gratitude might be not flowing in your life because you're not able to give from your life. And it's a really powerful thing. And this is not just about money. And by the way, I once heard money speak. It said, "Goodbye." And for many of us, when it comes to money, it's just slipping through our hands. There's never enough. And that's a reality for many of us. But this talk really isn't about money per se. This is about something deeper than money. This is about the confidence that comes from knowing that God will provide, period. That Source is there for us and will provide in ways we can't always understand or imagine. And oftentimes, the way in which the great Source of love provides is through someone's gratitude here on this planet. That so often the miracle isn't a gold bar showing up there on the ground out of nowhere. The miracle is somebody else's human gratitude opening their heart and saying, "Here, I'll help you. Let me change the tire for you, even though it's 20 below. Here, let me sign up as a volunteer so that I can be downstairs with the kids, so that our teacher isn't there alone. Here, use this check as green energy for the church." And that is a beautiful thing to do. One of the things that I like to conceptualize gratitude and flow as is pressurization. And one way to think about that is all the plumbing systems that our homes have. When you turn on the water, on your faucet, what happens? What's supposed to happen? It's supposed to flow pretty nicely. When you go take a shower, it's supposed to flow pretty nicely. When it's trickling out, you say, something's wrong with the shower. You can't wash your hair with a little trickle. So flow, pressurization go hand in hand. Things need to be pressurized for flow to happen. So here's the really wonderful thing. A community like a church pressurizes itself by everyone's joined intention to give outward in an energetic way, that we wish to flow our energy outward toward others in need. We wish to flow our energy outward through the ministry of the church, outward to others. And by that combined intention, it creates pressure. And that pressurization then can lead to flow. And that flow is ministry. That flow is love. That flow is kindness. That flow is mercy. And it starts to flow. The opposite of flow is stagnation. And when the flow is constricted and it's not pressurized, churches tend to stagnate. And stagnant water is not pleasant to smell or drink. But we're meant to be energetically in flow. Emotions are energy in motion. Giving of gratitude is energy in motion. And this is the spiritual coding underneath the external forms of time, treasure, and talent that we give. This is the spiritual coding that runs the programs. This is why we give, is to experience gratitude in our lives. And to give back keeps the flow and the pressurization going. Amazing miracle number one. If you're feeling blockage around finances or not experiencing flow coming back to you, practice giving and watch what happens. Something will happen because your energy is moving it. Trusting God that something will happen. You can play around with that energy, and it's a wonderful thing to do, not just with money, but with your time and with your talents. It's a very, very important thing to do. When I first got out of seminary, I served a church that was literally built on the hotel that was torn down, where General Motors was founded by a group of men wearing very nice suits, smoking cigars, sat and inked the deal to create General Motors out of all these different motor companies, car companies in the area. The church was built on the very foundation of General Motors, and over the years and decades, many, many executives, before Flint fell to the state that it is in now, many, many executives left large amounts of money to the church endowment. And so when I arrived there in 1999, Flint itself as a city, half the town was boarded up. Main Street was boarded up. There were more homeless people wandering the street than anything else. And I looked at it and I said, this is rough. But the church was vibrant. The The church was the center of their community, and it was an extraordinary light in the darkness. And one of the reasons they were able to have so much flow, energetic ministry flow to the community through homeless meals and other things was, yes, because they had this huge endowment that pressurized the system, that created this immense pressure that enabled outward flow in significant dollars in ministry and creativity. They were able to hire someone, a social worker, to be on staff. What church gets to hire a social worker? They were able to hire and create a Gerholtz counseling center for therapists full-time so that they could give counseling and therapy work to people who could never afford it on their own. And that pressurization of assets, of endowment, created flow. And I often wondered, the $20 million that was there in 1999, in my mind I imagined, well, why don't we do some bigger things with this? Why just keep it and keep accumulating the interest? And I learned the wisdom in having an endowment. And I pray that this church, Christ Presbyterian Church, will move in that direction to having an endowment that creates pressurization and flow. But today, that endowment in Flint is almost triple what it was. And they're able to do continued extraordinary ministry, redoing their whole building for a children's wing. And you can begin to see the wisdom of having pressurization when it comes to finances in the church, so that we're not living day by day or check by check, so to speak. And so many people live check by check. We have just a little bit of pressurization. Just a little pressurization. But there are some communities, some churches, some people who have so much pressurization. So much pressurization. You couldn't spend it if you gave it all away in 10 lifetimes. And so it's an extraordinary thing, this gift of pressurization through compounding interest and endowments. And it's a wonderful thing if you've been blessed with an endowment in your life or trust in your life that came to you through a family or whatever. It's an extraordinary gift. It's an extraordinary gift that most human beings never get to experience. And, that's a big blessing. But even just to be an American citizen, we are pressurized. Our country is so pressurized, it's able to do so much. You go around the world and you see communities that have zero pressurization of force or energy or capacity to do anything. And we are so blessed as a country. This country is so pressurized. Might be pressurized by a lot of debt, but we'll see what happens with that, right? That's another sermon. But pressurization of the assets, pressurization of our talents, pressurization of our time is really other ways of thinking about this, bigger ways of thinking about it. So as we wind up this little talk on growing in gratitude, these ways of growing in gratitude, that we're grateful in every circumstance because the whole transcends any particular circumstances we might have. Gratitude has a way of reducing our anxiety. It's counterintuitive, but if you want to treat your anxiety of fear of not having enough, give to someone who has less than you. And see what happens in you as you do that. Letting go just a little can have a huge impact in someone else. Your little is a lot to someone else, perhaps. And so let us aim to grow in gratitude always, little by little, counterintuitively by giving. Try it. Give something away of yourself, time, treasure, talent, without any hope or expectation of getting anything in return. And see what shifts in your life. And I'd look forward to hearing the stories that come about by doing that. You've heard what I've had to say. Let's take a moment in the silence and complete the message together. Lord, help us to remember that everything comes from you and that we return to you and we are but stewards of all you have given to us. And help us to bless others and grow in gratitude. Amen.